Yeah, so pretty much been going through. They blew up a bunch of places. A helicopter got hit, and Maduro's going to the same prison. Diddy and Bankman-Fried were out. Seems to be what's happening. And then they released this picture. My man in a Nike sweatsuit. What time did they enter? What time does he put the Nike sweatsuit on? I don't know if it's the right word there. They'll probably say entered. No, I'm trying to figure out who's going to take it over next. Oh shit, it's already on Wikipedia. Yeah, I got in a nice sweatsuit. Strings tied to everything. It's crazy work. We're trying to figure out if that's good or bad marketing. For Nike. I feel like this is a drug dealer's shit, though. The Nike tag, you see the gray? The gray Nike tag. Is that what it is? I think this is the gray Nike tag. There's no way. Yeah, look, with the pocket on the side. They got Maduro. They captured him in the drug dealer's special. Especial. That is so crazy. Where is it? Look. 140. This is going to be the next picture they use. That is so crazy. How'd they get my man in the Nike tag? That's wild. He's probably got some cocaine in his pocket. Yeah. I'm trying to see what they got him cuffed with. I guess it's just normal handcuffs. I can't believe that. They got my man the Nike tag. Boy. 140. We might just have to buy this. That could be a Halloween costume. Maduro. That is so crazy. Why is there 3 pictures? Yeah, let's also not forget this is what it's really about. They're saying drugs and everything, but they want their oil. Yeah, shout out Trump. See, if you're capturing Trump, you're getting him in a suit. I don't know what kind of suits does Trump wear. Let's see. It might be custom. Yeah, see. Oh, he's got on that Brioni. Okay. Yeah. I thought he might have one like a Zegna. Yeah. Brioni too, though. That makes sense. You know, might get on a little bit of this little light cashmere. Oh, no, that's why he ain't buying that bullshit. Doesn't load. Let's see his Brioni. Customly. Oh, what is this? This is Trump right here. Oh my god. This is also good marketing. Yeah, Mark Greenfield there. Here we go. The guy Marty. Oh. Maduro, he goes for that Nike Tech, boy. Where'd that go? This is the third picture. Yeah. You'll catch Maduro with Nike Tech. I cannot believe that. That's so funny. You know he the shorts. Yeah, look. This was it's really the same shit, even the black at the end. I don't know, it's crazy though. Yeah, look. So they're going for their oil. Shouldn't type oil field. No. Take some notes on this. And then next time you're filling up your car, it's probably going to be coming from this oil belt. Eastern Venezuela. Yeah. Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez. They're probably going to pillage that shit right now. It's pretty sweet. That's a toss though. Yeah. There's also different rules. So it just says wool, but to be careful what you're getting. Goes up, yeah, there we go. You get like a 120 or a 130. Yeah, see. I've done the custom suit thing, it knows what it is. Pretty much just getting measured and then waiting for some clothes to show up. It's really not that cool. What is cool though is this guy going in the Nike Tech. Unbelievable. Hugo Chavez videos. Yeah, where were they saying? They were saying Eastern Venezuela. Maybe somewhere over oil all through there. So, oh yeah, it's right here. There's a river. Yeah, dude should have jetted off. I don't know what he's doing. Look at it, just jetted off. It's probably very warm there. Jungle territory. Oh my god, it's just a bunch of farms. I don't even know what that's farming. It's crazy. There. You could probably just look right on the coast. France took this over at some point. It's just farms look dusty. They don't even look properly. Why are they all randomly like that? What is this? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh, Venezuela. It's got Yelp reviews. Yeah, we see the menu. I don't care about it's funny that it has reviews. That's from China. Let's see. 26 states and one federal district. It's kind of the one that everybody hears about. There's probably some cool. There's just a bunch of empty land. It's kind of wild. Beach right here. People got pools and whatnot. It's pretty crazy. like Florida. Yeah, pretty nice. Alright. So they got him. Maduro and the Nike tech is facing the death penalty for sure. Oh, for sure facing the death penalty. I think that this company was off. Yeah, I think that this company, they're always... Yeah, we're trying to see who's gonna take it over. Yeah, they're saying that the U.S. will, it'll be interesting to see how they make that happen. How can we make it happen? You're gonna have to find somebody that people want. They're saying that there's this other lady, Maria. Something. Maria Corina Machado. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, she's I don't know. Videos are talking about oh shit.
Well, with whom they're dealing with. This is not a legitimate president. This is the head of a criminal structure that was already defeated in a presidential election by landslide. So they know how to deal with these kind of individuals that are criminals, narco-terrorists, and I believe that Maduro will get a very clear picture of what are his options and what's the future for Venezuela.
What would be your message to Americans who are worried that this could become another costly foreign entanglement?
Maduro started this war. President Trump is ending this war. A transition to democracy in Venezuela will make the Americas, including the United States, safer, more secure, and more prosperous. Because Venezuela, our country, has been turned into that safe haven for all those enemies, forces that want to undermine the institutions of the United States and also kill people in Venezuela and in your country. So we are solving and dismantling a criminal structure that has produced great pain and turned our country, our nation, into the best ally of the United States, a security shield for the Americas, and a huge opportunity for energy security as well. And one thing very important, Rachel, millions of Venezuelan migrants will come back home the day Maduro goes.
Well, yeah, see, democracy. It's gonna be some trans person or some shit. That's really what's gonna happen. Alright, yeah, we had Buffett with Greg Abel, he's just encouraging that. Nice winter tie. Alright, that's cool. You start kind of putting it out there now. See what this
So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it essentially until such time as a proper transition can take place.
It's code for give us the loot. Give us the freaking loot. Oh, what do you know?
As Washington unveiled new allegations of Ryan Wedding's vast criminal reach, details of his alleged Canadian associate,
See what oil stops doing on Monday. Surely run. Can't believe they captured him. And a Nike tack fit. Bro. Steve Jobs was a board member at Gap. What? Said in his memoir. It's crazy. It's like this, Kobe. I think that's how you spell it, Skibo. Here we go. Look at this shit. Carnegie. Yeah, I'm telling you, this Getty images thing. I'm gonna look into those shares after. Look at this. What is going on? John Furness. This is where Madonna got there. Madonna, Guy Ritchie. It's a castle. Oh my God, whoa. How much do we think it is to rent this out? What is this guy doing? This man's they killed. Oh my gosh. They got these people in kilts, bro. If this was today, this would be Cartiers. I think this one's probably better. Yeah, look at this. Let's see the interior. When did they get married there?
I first knew of Naomi when I saw one of her pictures. She had a smile that could light up any room. I slid into Naomi's DMs, and the rest is history.
They met on social media. They connected, and their first date was a visit to an ice cream shop, where Ross used his dad's Jag to take them there. From there on, they got on like a house on fire, and shared various interests, like their love for animals, for example. The relationship blossomed, they went on holiday together, and they fell in love.
Oh God.
Our relationship grew. I'd often stay over at Naomi's house. I'd go to work absolutely shattered as we'd binge watch Netflix series. And before we know it, I had like 1 hour sleep and then I was away at work. But it was all worth it. From the early stages of our relationship, I knew Naomi was the one for me and that I wanted to share the rest of my life with her.
I love Naomi. She's great. She's a bundle of energy. She's loving. She's funny. And yeah, she's the spit of Ross in a lot of ways. They are a perfectly matched couple.
Ross, Naomi, all you need in life is good health, happiness, and of course love. If you've got that, you've got everything.
I have much pleasure in declaring you married. You're now husband and wife. I invite you to share lots of kisses.
It's just like wedding dress. What was this? They hired a French village to get married. What does that even mean? Hindu wedding. Whoa.
It's custom for the groom to recall the story of how they met their wife. And let's just say our relationship was a slow burner. Our parents used to take us to tennis lessons aged 5 to Sutton Tennis Centre, and needless to say, there were no sign of a budding romance at this early age. We then bumped into each other again at the age of 17, a classy affair at a bar in Mulberry. I thought, wow, she looks good. After a few dating dates I went over.
Essentially. Oh my goodness. Take notes on that, that's pretty cool. Criminals. What's that? Where'd that go? Crenellations. Yeah. It's called defensive architecture. That's crazy. Put cannons on those. Whoa. Alright, let's see. So up top here. Yeah, they got this shield. Oh, that's pretty cool. What are we looking at? What are we doing? Yeah, they didn't show the interior. There we go. Starts to show it. Okay. Or we could go where the guy Dan Pena lives. How about this? Yeah, Goo 3. I've gone 3, Goo 3. This guy just... It's got a phone number. Wow, really? Kind of just out there. Oh my gosh. You're just surrounded by farms, gee. How's this thing built? I wonder, do you think Howard Rourke was a Freemason? I didn't know she wrote that into the novel. It's also not her real name. So... Ooh, that's pretty sweet. Where's this? David Balfour. David Bryce. Who's the Edinburgh architect? Oh shit. What's on this island? People live here. Primary school. What is going on? Is there another castle? That's crazy. Look at this. looks crazy. What's this? It's from David. This is David Bryce. Yeah. Alright, I want to see more about the Alfred Castle. We got a bunch of castles out here. It's kind of crazy. Alright, what is this Toro Say Castle? Oh, there's a bunch of these beaches in Scotland. These islands and everything. Oh. Here, somebody had another freaking castle. Who built this? Future. The Guthrie's bought it. Yeah, wow. Not killed, they're Spartans. Yeah, I don't know, so it was big castles though, jeez. Another one. It's a hotel. That's crazy. Is that, yeah, they got Muhammad Ali. That's crazy. going on with this. See if we can book a room. You hire the castle. You don't rent it. You hire it. Just start tickling. Looks like this management company. Beef. They're in the hospitality business. That tracks. Alright, are there any more castles? We just happened to see that one. What is this? A stone. Wow, what's going on with that? What is this? Sumerian or some shit? Where'd that go? A lot of people living here. Alright. God, Scotland, filled with castles and shit. Such a weird landmass. The soldiers' trenches. Yes. This. I don't know. The 5e castle. Jeez. OG. Oh shit, there gotta be there. That's odd. Why do they have family pictures? So this they just... Yeah, they do the Haggerty too. That's crazy sealing work. You got the whole there. What the fuck? Look at that rug. It's got the parquet flooring. Whoa. Oh shit. Probably some good books there. Some freaking history. Look at that. Yeah, so that wasn't working in there. The biters. Sure, freaking bikes off the castle grounds. Freaking imps. Look, it's got the cross. Hold on. Alright. This is cool. All the portraits. There's a bunch of castles in Scotland. That kinda sucks. Do that again. Just gotta bring us to the gram. Okay. All these sources are bought off and paid for. Mainstream media. P5, the permanent 5. P5. P5 we have. Like that word. Yeah. I'm trying to see some. Yeah, trust the BBC.
One, and there's more to come. Now, this comes as part of a months-long pressure campaign. We've seen boat strikes, we've seen a military buildup, we've seen announcements of covert action. But why is this happening?
Because we consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They sent millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that, causing a lot of problems.
Does your warning
and drugs.
The White House says that removing Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro will be a kind of silver bullet. It'll be a game changer in the fight against drug trafficking, and it'll weaken the power of cartels and crime in the Western Hemisphere. Look, the Maduro regime protects drug traffickers, protects illegal gold miners, it benefits from all kinds of organized crime. But the idea that removing Maduro will be some kind of silver bullet that fixes the problem of drug trafficking into the United States just doesn't hold up. For one, fentanyl's coming from Mexico, not Venezuela. Cocaine is moving through Venezuela, but most of it to Europe, not to the United States. Second, Maduro is a terrible dictator, very powerful within Venezuela, but he doesn't control drug trafficking organizations outside his own borders. Again, the ones bringing most of the drugs to the United States. So the idea that whether he stays or goes is somehow going to influence whether they remain in business, that it's somehow going to deter those cartels from continuing to traffic, I don't see it. On crime and cartels, plenty of Trump critics make these same points. The problem is, they're not offering any alternatives. The government should be focused on this problem. It's claimed hundreds of thousands of lives in the United States and in Latin America. And here's how we can do it. First, defund them. Give them less capital to work with. Go after the money launderers, asset managers, over a bullet. The Trump administration just seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. And it says this is just the first one and there's more to come. Now, this comes as part of a months-long pressure campaign. We've seen boat strikes, we've seen a military buildup, we've seen announcements of covert action. But why is this happening?
Because we consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They sent millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that, causing a lot of problems. And drugs.
The White House says that removing Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro will be a kind of silver bullet. It'll be a game changer in the fight against drug trafficking, and it'll weaken the power of cartels and crime in the Western Hemisphere. Look, the Maduro regime protects drug traffickers, protects illegal gold miners, it benefits from all kinds of organized crime. But the idea that removing Maduro will be some kind of silver bullet that fixes the problem of drug trafficking into the United States just doesn't hold up. For one, fentanyl's coming from Mexico, not Venezuela. Cocaine is moving through Venezuela, but most of it to Europe, not to the United States. Second, Maduro is a terrible dictator, very powerful within Venezuela, but he doesn't control drug trafficking organizations outside his own borders. Again, the ones bringing most of the drugs to the United States. So the idea that whether he stays or goes is somehow going to influence whether they remain in business, that it's somehow going to deter those cartels from continuing to traffic, I don't see it. On crime and cartels, plenty of Trump critics make these same points. The problem is, they're not offering any alternatives. The government should be focused on this problem. It's claimed hundreds of thousands of lives in the United States and in Latin America. And here's how we can do it. First, defund them. Give them less capital to work with. Go after the money launderers, asset managers, other legal businesses that help these groups shield and use their assets. Look, the Treasury Department has done some of that before, but it could be doing a lot more. We could put more resources there. Second, we should be disorganizing these groups, going after the middle rungs, the people who are vital to their everyday operations, to their logistics. And we should be doing it with governments in Latin America. That may take some pressure, and about that, Trump has a point. And third, we need to disarm them. But where do most of their guns come from? Here, the United States. This should be the part that's most in our control, disrupting the firearms trafficking networks. But we have to put resources behind it, and right now we don't. Let's say Maduro goes. Even in a post-Maduro Venezuela, a post-Maduro Latin America, the problem of crime and cartels doesn't go away. We'll still need a serious agenda to confront it. You don't need boat strikes. We don't need to seize oil tankers. We don't need to ignore the problem either. We'll still have to make changes ourselves, and we'll have to figure out a way to get countries to do it with us.
So pretty much the U.S. just ousted the current leadership. They're going to take all the time they need to pillage their resources, and then when it fits, they're going to put some puppet person in who listens to what they say. And according to one of these articles, a bunch of U.S. oil companies will start investing money into Venezuela. Gotta make the shareholders happy. Gotta make us happy. Oh, here we go. See, this is what he should have been picked up in. Instead they got him in the Nike tech outfit. He should have been wearing this. He might have got to the bunker. Or he could have just hid. What kind of watches is that? What kind of watches? Yeah, one. I was holding a sword though. What's that mean? What's that like? It's a diamond across it or something. Huge ass. I don't know what this is. Alright. Yeah, but if he was actually getting a fair trial, I mean, they're just gonna plant evidence and rearrange things, and it's, yeah, he's pretty much dead. He's either spending the rest of his life in a cell, or he gets killed. Oh, it's gonna go into chaos. Once people realize they don't have an actual ruler, like, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't go pillage some shit right now. He's probably got like 10 homes over there. Just go to one where people aren't. I'm trying to see where's there. How can I get Venezuela to take all this? That's also gonna suck, dude. Somebody came over and just took our president or leader. Yeah, but see, I don't trust this. I want to see, like, can I get, like, Venezuelan Twitter or something? Yeah, could you imagine if someone just came over and took Trump? You'd be pissed. Whether you like the guy or not, you'd still be pissed. It's like, how'd they just capture our world leader? They came in and just took him. Yeah. Yeah, see, this is where we meddle and interfere. Like, Maduro is not recognized by the U.S. as the country's legitimate president. It's like, you get to say. Yeah, so this is gonna be the guy. Sorry, Maria. You can probably get some secondary post roll. Maria Machado. Yeah, that'll probably be what happens. There's a presidential palace too. Oh my god, yeah, are you serious?
Give me 30 seconds and I'll make you learn AI. Watch this.
So this is how I became the most dangerous person in the room. One habit changed everything. I replaced social media with micro-learning. Now, instead of wasting time on social media, I spend 15 minutes a day actually.
All right, we have a massive show for you today, besties, but it's not going to be our prediction show. We thought we were doing predictions end of the year, but we had so many amazing stories to cover in the news that we're going to do predictions next week. The first story is we have investigative journalist Nick Shirley on. He has uncovered in a breaking 42-minute video that went viral $110 million in potential fraud in Minnesota. It's part of $9 billion in overall fraud, and we've got him on the show here exclusively. This video apparently, perhaps, prompted responses from Kash Patel and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who have sent agents in to inspect these facilities. Here's some sort of important context. These entitlement frauds in Minnesota have been going on for over 10 years. It's a 13, 14-year-old story. It started by an investigative reporter named Jeff Balon. He launched his first investigation into this in February of 2013 at Fox 9 News, local investigative journalists. And after that expose, charges were brought.
It's 9 a.m. on the East Coast, and if you're just joining us this morning, we have major breaking news. Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has been captured by U.S. forces.
It was an amazing...
And then there was the Russian drones too, which was pretty crazy.
Thing, an amazing job that these people did. Extremely complex, the whole maneuver, the landings, the number of aircraft, which were a massive number, the number of helicopters, a different type of helicopters.
The United States has just captured the president of Venezuela. The United States military, without congressional approval, but with 150 aircraft, attacked a foreign country to extract and arrest the foreign president of that country, Venezuela's Maduro, in just 2 hours and 28 minutes, all without a single dead American. At most, we had a damaged aircraft, a helicopter that was shot at, but it was still deemed flyable, so we didn't even leave the helicopter in Venezuela, and we have disappeared. So now the question is, who's going to run Venezuela? What does this mean? What's going to happen in markets? What does this mean for oil? What leadership are we going to see that's actually going to try to fight the armed rebel or guerrilla groups that exist inside of Venezuela? And where does Donald Trump think this leaves us? Well, a spoiler alert, Donald Trump says we are going to run Venezuela until a transition occurs, and if we need to, we are ready to mount a second stage, much larger attack. But at this point, Mr. Trump, or President Trump, does not believe that this is going to be necessary, and instead he took to Truth Social to show us a photo of the arrested president of Venezuela in earmuffs and a mask and handcuffs with a bottle of water. So it looks like, at least somewhat, he's being taken care of with a fresh bottle of American water. Now, this is incredible because, first of all, this was not just a show of force by America against Venezuela. This was a slight directly against the axis of resistance or anyone who threatens America. This was a direct middle finger to China, whose delegates just showed up 4 hours before this raid to negotiate likely oil deals with Maduro. Just 4 hours later, we go raid and extract the very president that Chinese delegations wanted to make deals with. So this is a middle finger not just to China, but it's also, frankly, a big fat middle finger to Russia. Because guess who supplied defensive weapons to the Maduro regime? Russia. Russia's S-300 and Buk M2Es, which are long and medium-range defensive air systems, were basically negligible against U.S. technology, possibly in part due to broken Russian supply chains, or the fact that somehow we basically shut down the entire power grid in Venezuela before we attacked. Now, that may have been due to cruise missiles and direct strikes, or it could have been a cyber attack or a combination, but we basically, as Trump puts it, bum-rushed the president. But the way I see it, we basically blitzkrieged Venezuela with 150 aircraft launched from over 20 different bases. We had operators as young as 20 years old as 49 years old. We had lower aircraft protected from above by drones, F-22s, F-18, B-1 bombers, Coast Guard, Marines, Air Force, all creating this shield above the airspace of Venezuela, above the low-lying clouds. Helicopters swept in through now cleared out corridors. Since we destroyed their defensive artillery, we now had helicopters swoop in below the cloud layer through now a safe zone protected by our aircraft above to attack Venezuela at 1:01 Eastern time or 2:01 in Venezuela in the middle of the night.
Grainger knows that as the procurement coordinator at a manufacturing plant, you can count on auto reordering to have the PPE you need on hand. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, again, this is such a show of strength by America, and it is an embarrassment to Venezuela, who the Trump administration believes is mostly propped up by Cuba, Russia, and China. And it's frankly a middle finger to all of the allies of Venezuela. So it's no surprise that other Latin American countries are now shaking in their boots, going, oh, how could you do this? We condemn your attack. But this, make no mistake of it, was a signal that America should not be messed with. Now, let's actually look at this as a factor of Venezuela for a moment. The United States has obviously built up the largest naval deployment in the Southern Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 1960s. And there were really 3 options here to deal with Maduro. Because, as Trump says, Maduro wanted to try to negotiate, but he just was unwilling to surrender and relinquish power. So there were really 3 options remaining. Number 1, you could exile him. So, pick him up like a Napoleon and put him somewhere else. You could extradite him, or you could also politically exile somebody by having a different power regime take, power essentially, but that could be difficult to do. You could just kill him, just bomb him. Or maybe more humane, you make him stand trial for his charges and his crimes, which we'll talk about those in just a moment, as well as the integration of the drug trade within the Venezuelan military, allegedly. So therefore, that really leaves the third option, which is extraditing him, which is exactly what just happened. We, in under 2.5 hours, extradited the foreign leader of a foreign country, which is pretty dang impressive. Delta Force and the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment penetrated Caracas, and frankly, now you've got the wife of Maduro and himself coming to New York to face charges. The entire mission was done in less than 6 hours. The extraction took less than 2.5 hours. We struck multiple military bases inside of Caracas as well as areas south of Caracas. We also struck local ports, and we've already been detaining oil tankers in the region. So obviously, as J.D. Vance says, this is a big old PSA for the world. That if essentially you contribute to narco-terrorism, you don't get to avoid justice. We will come after you. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to take issue with the fact that Donald Trump didn't request authorization from Congress. Marco Rubio actually directly addressed this and said that this is not the kind of mission that you can ask for congressional approval for, because this was a law enforcement operation by the Department of War with the Department of Justice, or on behalf of the Department of Justice. And frankly, they believe that if they would have told Congress, somebody would have just leaked it. Or worse, somebody could have just bet on Polymarket. Oh wait, I guess somebody bet on Polymarket anyway that Maduro would be out by January 31st. Ended up making $13,000 on a trade here, or what do we got here? $172,000 here, $4,000 here, closer to $1 over here on some of these other trades. So somebody made off with a nice, six-figure gain on trading the inside information. But apparently Congress was not able to insider trade this one. Just folks within the administration instead. But anyway, Donald Trump says Congress has a tendency to leak, and not that it would have mattered much because Venezuela knew we were coming. They saw our ships, and they were ready for us, except they weren't ready for what they faced, which, again, is just a really remarkable show of force by America. Especially since the CIA, and Trump had talked about this in his October press conference, but the CIA has been on the ground since August collecting information on Maduro, along with the NSA. They knew what he wore regularly, what he ate, where he ate, when he ate, his pets, where he likes to hang out. They knew everything about where he was staying, to the point where they built a replica building with the same steel doors that they would be expected to blow down to get to Maduro, with blowtorches or whatever they need to make sure they could extract him appropriately with minimal risk to Americans. Now, obviously, massive rewards and bounties for Maduro likely helped collect, intelligence. It's easy to pay somebody when, frankly, the economy of Venezuela is complete poopy doopy. And this isn't to be funny. It's really bad. The people of Venezuela are suffering. This chart right here, normally we're like, oh, it's good when a chart goes up and to the right? Well, it's good for Americans with dollars, because this is a chart showing how many Venezuelan bolivars you could buy, so their currency you could buy with $1 US. Well, $1 US has gone from buying 35 of their currency to buying over 300 of them. That's because you've got or had an economy under major strain, falling oil prices, which represents 1/3 of their GDP, 58% of government income comes from oil money, and U.S. sanctions, with potentially an annual inflation rate reaching 700% in 2026. So the economy is complete trash, and the people are suffering in Venezuela. They just had their currency lose 90% of its value in less than 2 years. The minimum wage in Venezuela is about 130 bolivars per month, which works out to about $1 per month. You probably need about $500 to feed a family in Venezuela. So it's no surprise that 80% of Venezuelans live in poverty, when the government has destroyed the economy, yet they lie to the public by implying that GDP will be growing at 8% next year and everything is fine. No surprise why over 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country. Now, of course, people are speculating that this intervention could lead to a pro-market transition, a bullish catalyst, anyone?
Bullish catalyst.
Sanctions relief, IMF engagement, economic stability. But a lot of that is going to be predicated on what kind of power vacuum exists and what kind of takeover occurs in Venezuela. So we'll have to evaluate this. Now, obviously, there are going to be debates about the War Powers Resolution in the United States. Like, was this strike legal? Was this extraction truly an offensive strike that was made due to an imminent threat to the United States? That's like legal jargon for saying, well, are you even able to weaponize the War Powers Resolution? Donald Trump debates this and says, look, every boat that we destroy avoids the death of 25 Americans. we lose 300,000 Americans per year to drugs. So don't worry, this was a war powers strike. Again, courts will debate this, but the point is it has occurred. So what matters more now is what's going to happen going forward. Well, apparently the vice president, who is now being sworn in as the president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, she clearly stands on a very fragile position, especially with threats that Donald Trump is willing to invade again. She has allegedly told Marco Rubio that she will do whatever is necessary. Trump does recognize that she was picked by Maduro and that she's, fortunately, though, so far essentially willing to do, quote, whatever is needed to make Venezuela great again. And now Trump is going to make sure that not only America, but the Venezuelans can make a lot of money. Now, of course, there are other leaders that are being considered. For example, Vladimir Lopez, who runs the National Armed Forces of Venezuela. You've got the Special Forces leader, Cabello, that might be an option. Maduro is believed also to have offered Venezuelan oil to the United States that maybe the administration will take over and sort of work with. Though Donald Trump has vetoed all these, so it seems like Trump doesn't really care about the people involved. Trump's going to do what Trump wants at this point, and they're looking for essentially somebody who's just going to say, okay. Now, a lot of people, obviously after Hugo Chavez died of cancer, well, technically a heart attack, but he had cancer. He was getting surgeries in Cuba to try to save his life. It didn't work. He's been in power since the early 2000s, 2002, I believe, to 2013. Then Maduro came into power. Maduro basically lost his election in 2024 to Maria Machado. She won the Nobel Peace Prize, which Donald Trump felt slighted by because, Trump says he solved so many wars, he should have won the Nobel Peace Prize. But anyway, Machado, she has been cheering for the removal of, well, frankly, Maduro for years. Since 2014, she's been a political activist to try to remove Maduro from power. And she's believed to be popularly desired by the people of Venezuela. She was actually banned from running against Maduro by Maduro's Supreme Tribunal, which basically, he runs. And so they ended up running a stand-in candidate in the popular election against Maduro. The stand-in candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won 2 times the votes that Maduro received. But the government just refused to acknowledge that election and just installed Maduro instead. So she argues the goal is to come to leadership, to reclaim democracy, though Donald Trump isn't a big fan of her. I don't know if he feels slighted because of the Nobel Peace Prize loss, but he says that she doesn't actually have the support of the people, and it would be very tough for her. Now, Venezuela also has weapons problems. Venezuela is, frankly, per the Foreign Affairs, full of armed groups that may take advantage of this power vacuum. And so you really need stability as fast as possible to prevent these gangs or Colombian guerrillas from taking control. The U.S. has already war-gamed these scenarios, and there are really 3 potential outcomes. One would be some kind of negotiated solution. And this would be like a Panama invasion of 1989 kind of negotiated solution where all the other countries are like, look, we support this transition, we don't support the invasion, we condemn the invasion and the extraction of the president, but we support the transition. We're mad, but we'll help. That kind of negotiated solution in the region that could institute peace. And then Donald Trump expects oil producers like the current major oil producer in Venezuela that is U.S.-based, Chevron, potentially rebuilding infrastructure and extracting oil wealth out of the country. Donald Trump suggests that the local economy will also benefit from this, but Trump wants to be repaid for the lives that have been lost in America for the drug war. Unclear how all of that is going to balance out, but Brazil, Russia, Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, China have all already rejected the attack. They see this as interference in Latin America. Okay, old news. But best case scenario 1 is still some kind of negotiated solution. Option number 2 would be like a Libya-style solution, which would be bad. Fractured military, fractured leadership. You get little power cells. Not good. It's kind of like almost like a small version of this would be like the Hamas leadership. That is just a splinter cell of 41 different cells in the Gaza Strip that have no unified leadership. Really hard to make a deal with those sort of groups and don't tend to lead to lasting peace. Worst case scenario, you get an imperialist takeover, like basically, some kind of military propped up by Russia, China. And you just get a Maduro 2.0. And that's why Trump says he's going to stay until a proper transition can take place. And we're just going to run the country. Now, Donald Trump doesn't exactly give clarity on how we're going to run it. It seems like we're going to run it with Rubio from the White House, and puppets basically inside of the Venezuelan government who just, basically convert, as Donald Trump puts it, and bow down to what the United States wants. It's pretty obvious that Donald Trump believes that people are going to convert because he says if they don't, we'll just have to, launch the second wave. So I think there's a pretty clear threat that you're going to disappear if.
Now, because I'm not one anymore, but can elect something better, that we can elect a good leader, right? And we go through this every election cycle, or at least every other one, where there is hope for one figure or another that things will be different this time, right? It's the old Peanuts, Charlie Brown cartoon of Lucy holding that football and pulling it away again and again and again, and it never stops Charlie Brown from taking another shot. It is impossible to get through elections a good leader in the United States because the structures of the American political system, the quote-unquote democracy, do not allow it. It has practically from its inception been an imperialist and if you want to call it hegemonic vice imperialist. I think it's doing a good job of being both at the current moment. That is what the United States is. And you are not going to get a good or even a better leader out of it, all right? Not certainly until there is enough suffering because of proper political change that would uproot the entirety of not only the U.S. government, but all the institutions that comprise the American political system, right? That inculcate the drive for hegemony and the belief in American exceptionalism, this messianic supremacist ideology that drives it. That type of serious upheaval and the emergence of something new could only come as a shock resulting from enormous, most likely economic suffering that would lead to a real, not electoral, a real revolutionary moment in the United States, which I have to admit I don't see as a possibility in any future, that I can foresee. So just forget it. I mean, I long since gave up on the U.S. political managed system. And again, I know people want to hope. That's what it comes down to. Again, unfortunately, people want to believe that just by casting a vote for Coke instead of Pepsi or Pepsi instead of Coke, that things will be better this time, and the U.S. will be a better country that will just try to find a constructive place in a multipolar world order. That is not going to happen. It isn't. It's not going to happen with a Republican. It's not going to happen with a Democrat. It's not going to happen with Trump or Vance. It's not going to happen even with Bernie Sanders. Similarly, in the UK, the one person who might have tried, Jeremy Corbyn, was destroyed, cut down and sabotaged from within his own party, and the media, to prevent that from ever happening. The existing political systems in the West are designed to present any change to the established geopolitical orthodoxy. Democracy is not allowed to interfere with that, and it's true in the U.S. as well. Trump wanted to go about foreign policy from a more realist position. I believe that. marginally, but that doesn't take away from the rest of the bend, right? It doesn't
Right.
take away from the drive for hegemony. If it's a reformulation, that doesn't make it a good one, right?
I mean, exactly? What does realism here mean in the perspective of a U.S. empire? It means can't take on China and Russia militarily, have to go somewhere else. Oh, couldn't do it with Iran. Now we have to go somewhere else.
Well, no, I mean it's simply a matter of recognizing we can't take them all on at the same time, and we'll start picking off the low-hanging fruit first. Try to play divide and conquer, right, and then move on them one at a time. That is realism. It's more practical, but it doesn't change the end goal of U.S. primacy and hegemony, right? It just goes about it in a slightly different formulation, and I would say a more practical formulation. And I mean, the U.S. was always capable of doing in Venezuela what just happened, to one degree or another. But it is only now on Donald Trump that they have done that, because he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't.
Yeah, and also, I mean, when we think about the progression of U.S. history in the recent decades, I mean, we've seen how the United States has been targeting, various areas of this strategy, or what if we call it that, but this, containment of Russia and China. We've seen kind of this progression of, go here, one area, West Asia, go to, Ukraine. When Donald Trump came back, I mean, he was very virulent, just like any GOP administration. He was very hawkish on Latin America during his first term. Every GOP administration, hell, George W. Bush kidnapped Hugo Chavez. I mean, this is what they do. And Donald Trump came into his second term, and we've seen how he's behaved in his second term. Obviously, in his second term, what he was told, or his people, or whatever, him himself, they all believed, we can do whatever we want now, because now whatever Biden did before us, whatever I did before that, whatever Obama did before that, that kind of sets the stage for, okay, well, what's the best place to get that foreign policy victory? They thought it was Iran. It didn't work. Ukraine was never going to be that. I don't think they ever came in thinking we're going to get that victory in Ukraine. And now Venezuela is the target. I don't even think Syria was on that. I think Syria was probably foretold, because he couldn't claim that. But yeah, Mark, your comments.
Yeah, it's the leopard doesn't change its spots, right? And no offense to leopards in that regard, they're amazing creatures, and it's an unfair analogy to compare the U.S. to them. But I don't know why people ever believed that there was going to be something good coming out of Donald Trump. I've never understood that, and I certainly. I said that the only good thing was that the Trump chaos bomb sometimes goes off in unpredictable ways, and that chaos alone could sometimes inhibit the United States. And certainly it has gone off on the transatlantic relationship as well, but the Europeans have already learned how to manage that chaos by simply becoming as subservient and sycophantic as possible, daddy, in order to prevent that transatlantic rift from widening further, at least, for the few years that Trump has left. It's Trump, his chaos is managed, right? Both within his own administration, by the deep state, with, the European allies who, are, shall we say, more traditionalist believers in their proper hegemonic master and their role in U.S.-led Western global hegemony. But it really is beyond me why anyone believed that there was anything good going to come out of Donald Trump.
I mean, for me, what I saw a lot of is, I think, I'm not this kind of person, Mark. I don't see single issues when people heard Trump talk just like they did in the first term about détente with Russia. That was 2016, and then here you have we're going to end the Ukraine war in in his 2024 campaign. I think a lot of people were willing to say, okay, well, we'll get something on Russia versus everything else. Well, that's not the type of guy I am. I know that all these things are interconnected anyway. So why would
we just heard about Trump's détente with Russia, right? The CIA,
right? The CIA,
Russian oil refineries, tankers, and almost certainly, right? There was just an assassination attempt on Putin at the Novgorod,
which the CIA was no doubt involved in.
No doubt.
I mean, it's literally
right. The
CIA, right? The CIA.
Russian oil,
No,
their proper hegemonic master and their role in U.S.-led Western global hegemony. It really is beyond me why anyone believed that there was anything good going to come out of Donald Trump.
I mean, for me, what I saw a lot of is I think I'm not this kind of person, Mark. I don't see single issues when people heard Trump talk just like they did in the first term about détente with Russia. That was 2016, and then here you have we're going to end the Ukraine war in in his 2024 campaign. I think a lot of people were willing to say, okay, well, we'll get something on Russia versus everything else. Well, that's not the type of guy I am. I know that all these things are interconnected anyway. So why
we just heard about Trump's détente with Russia, right? The CIA,
right? The CIA,
Russian oil refineries, tankers, and almost certainly, right? There was just an assassination attempt on Putin at the Novgorod,
which the CIA was no doubt involved in.
No doubt.
I mean, it's literally the thing that they revealed in the meeting.
On the refineries, they've been in charge of the drone attacks on the tankers. They boast about how they went into the country after the 2014 putsch, and the CIA took total control of the Ukrainian intelligence organs, the SBU and the GUR, and rebuilt them in their own image. And it is those
same operation. It's the same
that carried out this operation. We were told by the New York Times that an entire floor of the SBU building in Kiev is reserved for the U.S., for the CIA, and another floor, by the way, for MI6. But they had nothing to do with this, right? Oh, come on. So, yes, Trump obviously believes in decapitation strikes, and he just tried another one against Russia. And it didn't even come close to succeeding. And maybe the cold, practical, realpolitik of the Kremlin is not doing them a service when dealing with the U.S. right now.
Right. I mean, this is going to be a big question, I think, for for Russia and of course China, is that exact thing when it comes to when things like Venezuela happen, but even when assassination attempts on Putin. I mean, China is a much harder country to penetrate in that way, given that it's not in a direct proxy war, against
at the moment.
CIA. Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to what was that? Oh, I needed to pull up Europe's reaction, and I say the UK's in Europe as well, to this, because I think it demonstrates just how there really is I mean, China all the time. China, it doesn't beg, like literally beg, but it pleads to the Europe. Whenever there's a bilateral meeting, whenever Macron decides to come to China or to talk business, China always says, hey, why don't you consider strategic autonomy? Why don't you just behave? Why don't you just act like a dignified, independent country? Because, I'll just pull up Kaja Kallas first, because I seem to have lost Keir Starmer here, which is even more damning. But here's Kaja Kallas, her reaction. I've spoken with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and our ambassador in Caracas. The EU is closely monitoring the situation in Venezuela. Mind you, it should be noted that the Trump administration obviously didn't notify anybody on this attack. Like, this wasn't... Oh, why is this pulled up? This is ridiculous. Okay. StreamYard has been absolutely a mess since it changed its formatting. So here we go. Let me pull up Kaya Callas now. Here we go. I've spoken to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and our ambassador in Caracas. The EU is closely monitoring the situation in Venezuela, aka the United States didn't inform anybody, any embassy, of this attack. The EU has repeatedly stated Mr. Maduro lacks legitimacy and has defended a peaceful transition. Under all circumstances, the principles of international law and the UN Charter must be respected. We call for restraint. The safety of EU citizens is our top priority. I mean, this is just absolutely laughable. The Trump administration just tore up international law, just spit all over it, burned it like predictably any U.S. administration would. And the EU's best response is, oh, we're for international law, but Maduro is not legitimate.
After the Norwegians gave the Nobel Peace Prize, the Imperialism Prize, giving the green light to Machado, giving the green light for regime change in Venezuela. I mean, there wasn't anything to expect from the Europeans in that regard. Like I said, they are good little vassals of U.S.-led Western global hegemony. In fact, they regard themselves as upholding the real values of U.S.-led Western global hegemony, while Trump's blip, aberration period is in effect, and they might have to cover a little bit more for Trump's, shall we say, forthright imperialism, with a little bit of veneer of saying words like international law. So just throwing it out there. Not that it means anything to us or anything we do, but they'll at least toss the word out there. You'll never hear anyone within the Trump administration say anything about international law, without spitting on it as they do so.
I mean, Keir Starmer, Mark, not in the EU anymore, the UK. Keir Starmer is a part of that faction you mentioned as destroying Jeremy Corbyn. But, take a look at this statement. It's even worse than the EU statement. The UK has long supported a transition of power in Venezuela. We regard Maduro as an illegitimate president, and we shed no tears about the end of his regime. This is just blatant. We just do whatever. We just support whatever the U.S. does. I rated my support for international law this morning, but yet you support the regime change, which is completely against international law. The UK government will discuss the evolving situation with U.S. counterparts as we seek a safe and peaceful transition to a legitimate government that reflects the will of the Venezuelan people. It's always the UK, the U.S., the West. They always.
It's okay,
They're always so interested in the will.
As an illegitimate prime minister.
What does he have? 10% popularity.
I support real democratic political change in the United Kingdom and the United States. These are just words. They don't mean anything. They're just palatable.
What is his favorability rating, Keir Starmer? It's not law. It's not. I think it's 1 in 6 British.
It's in the teens. It's in the teens.
18%, something absolutely. Hell, Nicolas Maduro, he won the election. But this is it's absolutely laughable. Well, lastly, Mark, as we move toward the end here, let's talk about now what as we've been talking about this, my thoughts seem to be in the camp of, or in the area of, the United States when it was conducting, writing this national security strategy, configuring where it was going to go next. I truly do believe that when Donald Trump came into power, his administration, the elites who actually control U.S. foreign policy, they said, okay, we're going too fast and too hard against Russia and China. We need to pick off, as you call them, the low-hanging fruits. We need to go back to a more full-spectrum dominance model that follows the path of what did Wesley Clark say when the U.S. invaded Iraq? He said that there were 7 countries in 5 years that the United States wanted to topple. Well, none of those countries were major powers, right? So I believe that Donald Trump's so-called retrenchment, the empire's retrenchment, which is, I think, a signal of its relative weakness. It can't really wage a true Cold War or even a true hot war against any big power. It has to go after those that militarily really can't defend themselves, and that's what I think the Donald Trump administration is looking to do in the goal of making it difficult for Russia and China to do any kind of business or investment inside of
because Venezuela was aligned with Russia, China, and Iran. It's still seen as acting against them, right? I mean, and it is. It is a geopolitical loss for Russia, China, and Iran. What just happened in Venezuela, just like it was when the U.S. did the same thing a year ago in Syria, right? To a lesser extent in Nepal, and the mauling of the axis of resistance of Hamas and Hezbollah in the Middle East in the last couple of years. If the geopolitical horizon was a blockbuster sci-fi trilogy of movies, we're definitely in the Empire Strikes Back phase, right? I mean, that's where we are on the timeline. It doesn't mean that the Empire is going to win at the end, but it's definitely there's an ebb and flow to every war and every struggle, and right now we're at a dark ebb in this one.
Yeah, and your final comments, Mark, on the what implications will this have for the other flashpoints now? Because it appears that the Trump administration, we got started already with the breaking news of the development of the Maduro change operation, or the regime change operation that the United States has conducted on the early morning hours of January 3rd. And maybe we can get to some of the press conference, because I went over the initial announcements as well as the initial response from the Venezuelan government, the defense minister. But here, how about this? I think this is really telling, and then you can react and give your take on what's happened, a rundown of what's happened. Here is one of Donald Trump's comments at the press conference.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
So, Mark, the United States is going to run the country now that Nicolas Maduro has been kidnapped and taken out of the country. As you're talking, I'll put up a little scene of the bombing that happened in Caracas and a few other parts of the country. But to you, your reaction, your analysis of what just happened.
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about what.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Getty Images' third quarter 2025 earnings conference call.
Be like before.
Today's call is being recorded.
Unfortunately,
we have allocated 1 hour for prepared remarks and Q&A. At this time, I'd like to turn the conference over to Stephen Canner, VP of Investor Relations and Treasury at Getty Images. Thank you. You may begin.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Getty Images third quarter 2025 earnings call. Joining me on today's call are Craig Peters, Chief Executive Officer, and Jen Layden, Chief Financial Officer. Before we begin, we would like to note that due to the ongoing regulatory review process, we will not be able to comment on the Q3 2025 Shutterstock operating results. We appreciate your understanding. This call will include forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. These statements are subject to various risks, uncertainties, and assumptions which could cause our actual results to differ materially from these statements. These risks, uncertainties, and assumptions are highlighted in the forward-looking statements section of today's press release and in our filings with the SEC. Links to these filings and today's press release can be found on our investor relations website at investors.gettyimages.com. During our call today, we will also reference certain non-GAAP financial information, including adjusted EBITDA margin, adjusted EBITDA less CapEx, and free cash flow. We use non-GAAP measures in some of our financial discussions as we believe they represent our operational performance and underlying results of our business. Reconciliations of GAAP to non-GAAP measures, as well as the description, limitations, and rationale for using each measure can be found in our filings with the SEC. After our prepared remarks, we'll open the call for your questions. With that, I will hand the call over to our Chief Executive Officer, Craig Peters.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks to everyone for taking the time to join us today. I'll begin with a high-level view of the quarter, after which Jen will dive into the details of our financial performance. Third quarter revenue for 2025 was $240 million, representing a slight year-over-year decrease of 0.2% and 2% on a currency-neutral basis. Adjusted EBITDA came in at $78.7 million for the quarter, down 2.4% reported and 4.4% on a currency-neutral basis, at a margin of 32.8% of revenue. Within the quarter, we posted growth in creative and declines in editorial. Creative was aided by normalization of premium access revenue allocations following the shift in 2024 consumption away from creative and to editorial, driven by the Paris Olympics. While creative is in growth, we continue to see declines across agency customers consistent with prior quarters and commentary. Editorial declines are the result of a difficult compare given the same Olympics and the 2024 election cycle. These declines are partially offset by growth in entertainment and archive. We continue to see some revenues from AI data licensing in the quarter, but these were down from 2024 given the accelerated nature of revenue recognition for these deals. With that said, within the quarter, I was excited to realize some new opportunities within the AI landscape that more closely align with our traditional content licensing business. Within the quarter, we inked multiple deals to allow AI large language models and search experiences to utilize our content within their experiences to provide authentic, high-quality content in context. One of these agreements was a multi-year agreement with Perplexity, and it includes commitments for both image credits and link backs. Another opportunity was within our custom content business, where we create content specific to customer needs. In this case, the business leveraged our expertise and our network of global contributors to create training content specific to their needs. In each instance, Getty Images is doing what it has always done so well, providing high-quality content to customers to enhance their offerings at scale and on an economic basis. We see more opportunity here. On the merger front, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, has referred the proposed merger of Getty Images and Shutterstock to a Phase 2 review process. We were disappointed to receive this notice, as we do not believe the transaction in any way reduces competition or harms customers or suppliers, and we offered comprehensive remedies to avoid a Phase 2 review. This transaction is about the delivery of cost synergies and the resulting benefits they provide. The parties remain 100% committed to the transaction and to working with regulators in the UK and US to secure the necessary approvals. However, the realities of this process push any close into 2026. Elsewhere on the legal front, we received a judgment for our UK litigation against Stability AI, which ruled in favor of Getty Images on our trademark infringement claim, confirming that inclusion of our trademarks in AI-generated outputs infringe those trademarks, and that the responsibility for infringing outputs rests with Stability versus the end user. This is a win for rights holders everywhere. While we were unsuccessful on the secondary infringement claim and dropped the training claim ahead of trial due to lack of clarity on the location of such training, the ruling affirmed Getty Images' copyright-protected works were used to train Stable Diffusion. We will be taking forward these findings of fact into our U.S. case, where we refiled our case to California due to delays in development, and the court is now reviewing motions. We are also evaluating an appeal in the UK. And with that, I will turn it over to Jen to take you through the more detailed financials.
Our Q3 results broadly reflect the quarterly cadence we anticipated, with headwinds from our compares against a very strong editorial calendar in Q3 24, yielding an expected flattening of growth in the back half of 2025, beginning with Q3. While those year-on-year comparisons impacted our reported results, we continue to see strong growth in our subscription business and a return to an adjusted EBITDA margin north of 32%. Even as we continue to navigate declines in our agency business and a broadcast and production business that has yet to return to its pre-Hollywood strike performance level. Q3 revenue was $240 million, essentially flat on a reported basis and down 2% on a currency-neutral basis. Included in these results are certain impacts of the timing of revenue recognition, which contributed approximately 410 basis points to Q3 growth. Also, as expected, we saw the comparison to a very strong editorial event calendar in Q3 of 2024 impact some of our reported year-on-year results and metrics this quarter, and I'll highlight a few of those items here. Annual subscription revenue was 58.4% of total revenue, up from 52.4% in Q3 of last year, representing year-on-year growth of 11.2% or 9.3% on a currency-neutral basis. This growth was driven primarily by Premium Access, or PA, which makes up just over 1/3 of our total revenue, and grew 17% or 15% currency neutral. Our PA performance benefited from a large renewal in the quarter, which represented a meaningful upsize in scope and term for this customer, a testament to the continued demand for our content. We added 6,000 active annual subscribers to reach 304,000 in the Q3 LTM period, representing growth of approximately 1.7% over the comparable 2024 LTM period. Annual subscriber growth was driven by Unsplash Plus, with gains partially offset by iStock, where we continue to see some impact from the discontinuation of our free trial customer acquisition program in June 2025. The annual subscription revenue retention rate was 90.3% in the Q3 LTM period, compared to 92.2% in the corresponding 2024 period and 93.4% in the Q2 LTM period this year. The year-on-year decline primarily reflects the absence of major political, sporting, and certain one-time events that boosted a la carte subscriber spend in 2024. Paid downloads were down slightly at 93 million in the Q3 LTM period, while our video attachment rate was flat at 16.4%. Creative revenue was $144.9 million for the quarter, up 8.4% year-on-year and 6.4% on a currency-neutral basis. The $11.2 million increase was primarily driven by Premium Access revenue, which included a multi-year agreement signed in the third quarter with significant upfront revenue recognition. In addition, subscriber download patterns in the prior year period, which benefited from a robust event calendar, skewed allocation of revenue more toward editorial than creative. With no comparable events of similar magnitude in Q3 2025, download trends returned to historical allocation levels. Combined, the impact from the upfront revenue recognition and the shift in download patterns were the primary contributors to the year-over-year growth in creative this quarter. We also had gains across video, Unsplash Plus, and custom content, while agency headwinds persisted. Agency, which sits entirely within creative, declined 22% year-on-year, reflecting ongoing macro uncertainty, but also reflects the headwind from the year-on-year compare to a stronger Q3 in 2024 for agency, driven again by the 2024 editorial event calendar. Editorial revenue was $89.3 million, down 3.7% year-on-year and 5.6% on a currency-neutral basis. The performance was driven by double-digit decreases in news and sports, which faced tough comparisons due to a strong event calendar in 2024. This was partially offset by growth in entertainment and in archive. Other revenue was $5.8 million, down from $14.1 million in Q3 24 due to the timing of prior year revenue recognition for creative content deals, which included some level of AI rights. As Craig noted, our pipeline for these types of deals remains healthy in 2025. And despite some quarterly top-line variability that comes with these types of deals, we expect full-year revenue from these deals to be approximately 2 to 3% of total revenue, as we previously shared. From a geographic perspective, on a currency-neutral basis, we saw growth of 0.8% in the Americas, our largest region, while EMEA was down 4% and APAC was down 10.8%, due primarily to declines in agency. Revenue less our cost of revenue as a percentage of revenue remains strong at 73.2% compared with 73.4% in Q3 of 2024, with that year-on-year slight variability due largely to product.
In the quarter, we inked multiple deals to allow AI large language models and search experiences to utilize our content within their experiences to provide authentic, high-quality content in context. One of these agreements was a multi-year agreement with Perplexity, and it includes commitments for both image credits and linkbacks. Another opportunity was within our custom content business, where we create content specific to customer needs. In this case, a business leveraged our expertise and our network of global contributors to create training content specific to their needs. In each instance, Getty Images is doing what it has always done so well, providing high-quality content to customers to enhance their offerings at scale and on an economic basis. We see more opportunity here. On the merger front, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, has referred the proposed merger of Getty Images and Shutterstock to a Phase 2 review process. We were disappointed to receive this notice, as we do not believe the transaction in any way reduces competition or harms customers or suppliers, and we offered comprehensive remedies to avoid a Phase 2 review. This transaction is about the delivery of cost synergies and the resulting benefits they provide. The parties remain 100% committed to the transaction and to working with regulators in the UK and US to secure the necessary approvals. However, the realities of this process push any close into 2026. Elsewhere on the legal front, we received a judgment for our UK litigation against Stability AI, which ruled in favor of Getty Images on our trademark infringement claim, confirming that inclusion of our trademarks in AI-generated outputs infringe those trademarks, and that the responsibility for infringing outputs rests with Stability versus the end user. This is a win for rights holders everywhere. While we are unsuccessful on the secondary infringement claim, and dropped the training claim ahead of trial due to lack of clarity on the location of such training, the ruling affirmed Getty Images' copyright-protected works were used to train Stable Diffusion. We will be taking forward these findings of fact into our U.S. case, where we refiled our case to California due to delays in Delaware, and the court is now reviewing motions. We are also evaluating an appeal in the UK. And with that, I will turn it over to Jen to take you through the more detailed financials.
Our Q3 results broadly reflect the quarterly cadence we anticipated, with headwinds from our compares against a very strong editorial calendar in Q3 24, yielding an expected flattening of growth in the back half of 2025, beginning with Q3. While those year-on-year comparisons impacted our reported results, we continued to see strong growth in our subscription business and a return to an adjusted EBITDA margin north of 32%. Even as we continue to navigate declines in our agency business and a broadcast and production business that has yet to return to its pre-Hollywood strike performance level. Q3 revenue was $240 million, essentially flat on a reported basis and down 2% on a currency-neutral basis. Included in these results are certain impacts of the timing of revenue recognition, which contributed approximately 410 basis points to Q3 growth. Also, as expected, we saw the comparison to a very strong editorial event calendar in Q3 of 2024 impact some of our reported year-on-year results and metrics this quarter, and I'll highlight a few of those items here. Annual subscription revenue was 58.4% of total revenue, up from 52.4% in Q3 of last year, representing year-on-year growth of 11.2% or 9.3% on a currency-neutral basis. This growth was driven primarily by Premium Access, or PA, which makes up just over 1/3 of our total revenue, and grew 17% or 15% currency neutral. Our PA performance benefited from a large renewal in the quarter, which represented a meaningful upsize in scope and term for this customer, a testament to the continued demand for our content. We added 6,000 active annual subscribers to reach 304,000 in the Q3 LTM period, representing growth of approximately 1.7% over the comparable 2024 LTM period. Annual subscriber growth was driven by Unsplash Plus, with gains partially offset by iStock, where we continue to see some impact from the discontinuation of our free trial customer acquisition program in June 2025. The annual subscription revenue retention rate was 90.3% in the Q3 LTM period, compared to 92.2% in the corresponding 2024 period and 93.4% in the Q2 LTM period this year. The year-on-year decline primarily reflects the absence of major political, sporting, and certain one-time events that boosted a la carte subscriber spend in 2024. Paid downloads were down slightly at 93 million in the Q3 LTM period, while our video attachment rate was flat at 16.4%. Creative revenue was $144.9 million for the quarter, up 8.4% year-on-year and 6.4% on a currency-neutral basis. The $11.2 million increase was primarily driven by Premium Access revenue, which included a multi-year agreement signed in the third quarter with significant upfront revenue recognition. In addition, subscriber download patterns in the prior year period, which benefited from a robust event calendar, skewed allocation of revenue more toward editorial than creative. With no comparable events of similar magnitude in Q3 2025, download trends returned to historical allocation levels. Combined, the impact from the upfront revenue recognition and the shift in download patterns were the primary contributors to the year-over-year growth in creative this quarter. We also had gains across video, Unsplash Plus, and custom content, while agency headwinds persisted. Agency, which sits entirely within creative, declined 22% year-on-year, reflecting ongoing macro uncertainty, but also reflects the headwind from the year-on-year compare to a stronger Q3 in 2024 for agency, driven again by the 2024 editorial event calendar. Editorial revenue was $89.3 million, down 3.7% year-on-year and 5.6% on a currency-neutral basis. The performance was driven by double-digit decreases in news and sports, which faced tough comparisons due to a strong event calendar in 2024. This was partially offset by growth in entertainment and in archive. Other revenue was $5.8 million, down from $14.1 million in Q3 24 due to the timing of prior year revenue recognition for creative content deals, which included some level of AI rights. As Craig noted, our pipeline for these types of deals remains healthy in 2025. And despite some quarterly top-line variability that comes with these types of deals, we expect full-year revenue from these deals to be approximately 2 to 3% of total revenue, as we previously shared. From a geographic perspective, on a currency-neutral basis, we saw growth of 0.8% in the Americas, our largest region, while EMEA was down 4% and APAC was down 10.8%, due primarily to declines in agency. Revenue less our cost of revenue as a percentage of revenue remains strong at 73.2% compared with 73.4% in Q3 of 2024, with that year-on-year slight variability due largely to product mix. SG&A expense was $101 million, up $0.9 million year-on-year, with our expense rate increasing to 42.1% of revenue from 41.6% last year. Excluding stock-based compensation, SG&A increased to $97 million in the quarter, or 40.4% of revenue, up from $95.8 million, or 39.8% of revenue in Q3 of 2024. This increase in SG&A relates primarily to $3 million of professional fees tied to the acceleration of our SOX compliance efforts, and $1 million for the ongoing litigation with Stability AI. We have previously shared that we expect approximately $8 million of SOX acceleration costs in 2025, with approximately $5.4 million of that incurred year-to-date through Q3. Adjusted EBITDA was $78.7 million for the quarter, down 2.4% or 4.4% on a currency-neutral basis. Adjusted EBITDA margin was 32.8% compared to 33.5% in Q3 2024. Excluding the impact of accelerated SOX compliance and litigation costs, our adjusted EBITDA margin would have been 34.5%. CapEx was $14.7 million in Q3, up $2.2 million year-over-year. CapEx as a percentage of revenue was 6.1% compared to 5.2% in the prior year
brought
period.
in 2014 against a Somali woman and her husband. They skipped bail. They never faced trial. Here's a 45-second clip from 2016 from Balaam.
Ali is facing numerous counts of theft by swindle and racketeering.
Adjusted EBITDA less CapEx was $64 million, down 6.1% or 8.1% on a currency-neutral basis. Adjusted EBITDA less CapEx margin was 26.7% compared to 28.3% in Q3 2024. Free cash flow was $7.9 million compared to negative $1.8 million in Q3 2024. The increase in free cash flow reflects changes in working capital, primarily due to the timing of receivables and payables. Free cash flow is stated net of cash interest paid of $26.2 million, a decrease of $14.6 million over the prior year. Cash taxes paid in the quarter were $9 million, a decrease of $1.3 million over Q3 of 2024. We finished the quarter with $109.5 million of balance sheet cash, down $0.3 million from the Q3 24 ending balance and down $0.7 million from Q2 of 2025. We also have a $150 million revolver that remains undrawn. As of September 30th, we had total debt outstanding of $1.38 billion, which included $540 million of 11.25% senior secured notes, $503 million of euro term loans converted using exchange rates as of September 30th, 2025, with an applicable rate of 7.94%, $40 million of USD term loans at 11.25% fixed rate, and $300 million of 9.75% senior unsecured notes. Our net leverage was 4.3 times at the end of Q3, compared to 4.2 times in Q3 2024. The slight uptick in net leverage primarily reflects the impact of the weaker dollar on the value of our euro term loan debt, partially offset by an improvement in the trailing 12-month adjusted EBITDA. We had a busy third quarter with respect to financing transactions, all executed with an eye to our pending merger with Shutterstock. In October, we completed an exchange offer to extend the maturities on our senior unsecured notes, replacing $294.7 million of 9.75% notes due March of 2027 with new 14% senior unsecured notes now due in March of 2028. The new notes are prepayable at par until the original on our senior unsecured notes, replacing $294.7 million of 9.75% notes due March of 2027 with new 14% senior unsecured notes now due in March of 2028. The new notes are prepayable at par until the original maturity date or for 6 months following the close of the merger. In addition, we issued $628.4 million of new 10.5% senior notes due 2030 to fund the estimated merger cash consideration, refinance existing Shutterstock debt, and to cover anticipated merger-related fees and expenses. The proceeds from this financing will remain in escrow, subject to the closing of the merger. While in escrow, the financing carries an approximate net interest cost of $3.5 million per month. We opted to execute this financing sooner rather than later so we could be poised for transaction close once we clear regulatory approval, and also to allow for management focus to pivot to integration planning and to operating our standalone business in the interim. Considering the foreign exchange rates and applicable interest rates on our debt balance as of September 30th, factoring in
Getty Images and Shutterstock are merging. For my fellow stock photography contributors, this is news that you're going to want to hear.
If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Jason Yoder. I'm an Arizona-based photographer who enjoys capturing the world through the lens of my camera. I hope you find this channel entertaining and inspiring as I take you with me on my photography journey. Subscribe to my channel to enjoy more videos like this.
Today, Getty Images and Shutterstock have announced that they're going to merge into one company. Now, it's no secret that I'm not a fan of the way how Shutterstock has been treating their contributors. As a matter of fact, the second most popular video that I've ever aired on YouTube is when they gave us the big slap in the face and drastically cut our commissions. I'll post the link in the description to the episode if you guys want to see it, because it might come back and haunt us again. This is what we know so far. Now, I've read both the email sent to contributors and the press release, and both of them are full of corporate BS. Getty Images will be the majority holder of the new company.
All right, we're 3 days in, and conflict is escalating, as we said. There have been reports of explosions happening in Venezuela, and the United States president has declared that the president of Venezuela has been captured, okay? There have been reports of explosions happening in Venezuela, and the United States president has declared that the president of Venezuela has been captured, okay? So we know that the story on the surface here is that this is about narco-terrorism, and we know that if we go one layer deeper, we're being told that this is about oil. But I'm gonna go over why even that might be hiding the real reason that Trump had to have a regime change in Venezuela on the third day of the year. So what's really going on here, and what does this mean for you, and what does this mean for your money? The capture of President Nicolas Maduro comes after Trump has been striking Venezuelan boats in the ocean, and after basically Trump also told us that they would begin land strikes in the country as well. So they gave us a little bit of a heads up on something happening. Once again, we're being told this is about narco-terrorism, and Attorney General Pam Bondi came out and said that Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, with Nicolas Maduro being charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy charge. The live show that I do with Ben Levitt, where we go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if you
Teen years can be rocky, and growing up in a military family does not make them easier. Luckily, Talkspace online therapy for teens is covered by TRICARE, because I know my daughter misses her dad, and she's...
All right, we're 3 days in, and conflict is escalating, as we said.
Keith, it's been a year since I've seen you, man.
Whoa, it's a whole new year.
How you doing, Keith?
Man, I'm absolutely fantastic. How you doing?
Today's the best day of my life because I'm talking to you, stealing your line, and we also have some legends here in the chat already. Jim, the absolute legend, how are you? Welcome back. We've got Impress Me, sup guys, new here, Happy New Year, we're happy to have you, welcome, welcome. We got Dave here, what up chat, Happy New Year to you.
Yo.
Dave, you're a legend, welcome back. And Matt, Happy New Year, appreciate having all of y'all. Appreciate y'all being active in the chat. And today we're talking Trump's 2026 economy, his plans for it, and how that's gonna impact the American economy, the global economy, and then your personal finances and investments if you've got any. But Keith, what did you get up to last night for New Year's Eve?
Got to hang out with the fam, man.
Nice, man. How was it?
It was good, man. Got to see people I haven't seen in quite some time. One of my cousins has been in the military, so I got to see him and
amazing.
Hear about that. How about you, man?
I watched Stranger Things with my girlfriend and did about nothing else. And I will say, for anyone who watched Stranger Things, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I thought the whole last season was pretty weak, but I thought the ending was pretty lame as well too. There's no good way to end a series that's that popular. There's just not. But I think this was definitely not. It was just kind of lame, but it is what it is. It was a good, chill New Year's. Get me ready for this fire episode, man. So what do you want to start? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's dive into it. First thing I'll also say is none of this is financial advice.
Very important distinction. We never give financial advice. We are one idiot, one smart guy talking on the internet.
Couple idiots. The first thing that I did a video on this, and we'll dive super deep into this stuff today. First thing that I think is going to be important to understand about what's happening in this upcoming year is that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, it looks like he's trying to get full control over the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve in the United States is the central bank, and they essentially can set the target rate for the interest rates in the short-term funding markets. And this is essentially the markets that banks will go to lend money to each other overnight. So banks might be short on cash to meet, for instance, customer demands for withdrawals or something of that nature, and then they'll lend money from another bank to be able to meet the requirements that they also have.
All right, I gotta see. Oh, here we go.
She ran a daycare business and home health care company that catered to low-income families. But former employees told the Fox 9 investigators back in 2013 that it was really part of a scam to collect millions in public subsidies.
When I saw the bank account for the business, there were large cash withdrawals on a continuous basis.
Could I ask? Okay, let me just go around the horn here. Lightning round. Sachs, a year from now, what will happen in relation to what we've seen in Minnesota?
Well, I hope that there will be a serious investigation. I hope that there will be indictments. I hope there will be deportations, hopefully massive amounts of deportations. And I hope there'll be impeachments of some of these officials who let the fraud happen.
Ooh,
so
love
the
it.
country is being eaten alive, it feels like, by fraud. Government funds are being stolen, votes are being stolen, I believe elections are being stolen. And it all comes from the fact that the party of government doesn't really care where the money goes. It's all just patronage to them, whether it's to Somali daycares or whether it's to this high-speed rail line that doesn't have one piece of track laid. I mean, how much has California wasted on that?
Yeah.
Or $24 billion to the homelessness, only to see the homeless population increase. Look, these politicians don't care how the money is spent at all. All they care about is rewarding their supporters. That's the whole game. And then those supporters round trip a portion of the ill-gotten gains they've gotten from the government back to those politicians. That's the whole game. And then when the whole thing blows up because it's just so corrupt and inefficient and so absurd, what do? They try to find productive people to scapegoat. And they say that billionaires are your problem. They'll blame billionaires for that, or they'll blame the tech community. Look, the startup community, the tech community is one of the, I'd say, last extremely well-functioning parts of American society, but they don't control it yet. And so that's what the politicians will do, is they will try to find scapegoats to expand their control and expand the size and scope of the corrupt system that they're running.
Freeberg, what do you think? A year from now, where will we be? And what do you think this says about America at the end of the empire, and which you've been focused on? Yeah.
Probably two things. So this is like everyone pocketing the silverware as the Titanic is sinking, because the spiraling spending, the lack of audits, the lack of accountability effectively enables an environment like this, because we've basically increased government spending so much to basically try and grow the economy, prop up the debt, keep the debt service payments flowing, etc. So as a result, anytime you have a bubble, and in this case we have a bubble in government spending, you have fraudy behavior. There's, my guess, tip of the iceberg, Elon's estimate was 20% of federal spending falls under this kind of fraud camp. Could be more. And then when you add in state and local spending and you start to do the accounting on all of this, we're probably talking about a sizable percentage of overall GDP that is effectively theft through government agencies or government checks being written. And I think that's going to be the great uncovering of 2026, is we're going to see on the order of trillions of dollars of trillions of dollars of this sort of behavior happening across the economy. And I also think the other side, nothing will happen. And I think nothing will happen because the cost is going to be so significant, it's almost like staring into the abyss. It's going to make people feel sick to try and address it.
Actually, let me ask Freeberg a question. How do you differentiate between legal theft and illegal theft? Meaning, I think what the Somali daycares were doing was outright fraud and is illegal. But when Stacey Abrams creates a NGO in the final days of the Biden administration and that gets stuffed with $2 billion, I mean, technically, I guess that's legal, but it's clearly a different kind of theft and fraud.
Would you throw up in your mouth when you heard the news? That's the test.
That's the little test.
When Elon exposed that.
Yeah, and I call that the common sense vomit in the mouth test. If you don't pass the common sense vomit in the mouth test, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or illegal. It's f***ed up. And you'll realize that pretty quickly.
Chamath,
you don't pass the common sense vomit in the mouth test, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or illegal. It's f***ed up. And you'll realize that pretty quickly.
Chamath, your thoughts on what we just discussed, and maybe a year from now, will any of this change?
It is a crucible moment for American society. If nothing happens and we deem this kind of theft acceptable, it is the beginning of the end of the American empire. It's just a level of disrespect and lack of care for this country, I think. So I will be waiting and observing how important it is to root this out. That's number one. The second, which is more tactical political calculus, this is an enormous opportunity for the Republican Party if they take this and run with this. Is there waste, fraud, and abuse in every state? Absolutely. I don't think this is endemically a Democratic problem. But the scale of it is so gargantuan in these Democratic states that if the Republicans don't take advantage of it, I think it is a huge political miscalculation. So there is this tactical opportunity, which I think if you want to have a chance in the midterms, and if you generally want to have a chance to level set the country, you must take this and run with it.
Yeah.
And then separately, if, as Freeberg says, it does die on the vine, it is the beginning of the end of the American empire, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as you. These Democrats have nothing to hang their hat on. They have no platform. They're lost. They're adrift. If, and it's going to be impossible for Gavin to do this because there's been so much corruption in California. But if he did, theoretically, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Pritzker, if they came out and said, Elon was right, Doge is the right idea, we should take what Elon did and we should take every agency, audit them, and we should prosecute anybody and fire anybody who's incompetent, prosecute anybody who's a criminal, and we should cut these programs, 10% a year for 2 or 3 years and tighten them up and make them perfect for the American people so we can lower taxes and we can provide better services. And that's my platform for 2026 and 2028 for president. That is going to be the easiest path to victory and rebooting the failed, dopey Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think you're right, J. Cal. If the message from both parties is enough is enough, and let me just end on an optimistic note, and they say enough is enough. We've seen it. It's staggering. We are going to fix it. That is the party's message. That is the country's message. That is the government's message. Whether they're holding hands or yelling across the aisle saying, we're going to fix it. No, we're going to fix it. It's an opportunity. And the reality is, if the fraud, waste, and abuse